What's up, guys? It's Amanda here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Happy Artsy Fartsy Friday to all of you artsy people out there. As promised, this is part 2 of my Mother Thinks I'm Morbid inner and outer self piece. Sort of a long title, but if you watched the first video, which was the outer self video, then you kind of know what this video that you're watching now is pertaining to. And if you haven't watched that video, I will put it in the info cards and I will also link it down below. I kind of suggest that you watch that one first, but if you are already familiar with the My Mother Thinks I'm Morbid series, then you may not need any of that pretext. So this is part 2. This is the inner self, and this is really where all of that symbolism sort of clicks into place. And the symbolism that I'm referring to is the symbolism I was talking about in the first video, which sort of ties back to vanitas and sort of how beauty is fleeting, and how we praise the outer self for being more aesthetically pleasing, but we kind of neglect the inner self for being, you know, the truest self in a sense. And this was a concept that has sort of been developing for going on probably over 4 years now, and it's something that I've had a lot of fun exploring, and the title is just sort of a fun reference to my mom thinking that I was depressed because I was drawing all of these symbols that are sort of on the surface very oriented in like death and despair, but to me that's really not what they mean at all. And I've mentioned this in older videos, but skulls have different meanings in different cultures. And where I grew up, which is in New Mexico, on the border of Mexico, the culture that I grew up around really was not so much that skulls represented death and the end of life, but it was more a celebration of life. And if you're familiar with Dia de los Muertos, then you kind of know that sort of symbolism, or that interpretation of the symbolism of skulls. But that combined with vanitas is really what brought this series to life, no pun intended. So to me, the skull represents the inner self, the truest self, who I really am. And the reason I make it a skull is to kind of take away the aesthetics. What is left when the beauty is gone? You know, when it's faded and gone away, what remains? And to me, what remains is my passion for what I do, my creativity, my mind, my love for the things and the people in my life. Those are things that you don't necessarily get just by looking at me, if you were to look at me as just the outer self. So that's kind of why I like this series, is it sort of parallels these concepts that I love to think about, and I'm sure many of you do as well. And I'm loving the opportunity to actually sit down and tell you guys more about this, because I don't think I've really sat down and addressed the My Mother Thinks I'm Morbid series at all in its own video. So it's kind of cool that I get 2 separate videos to talk about it. And it's been a lot of fun. So I have tons of pieces in this series already. Pretty much anytime you see me drawing a skull, or a girl with a half skull face, or a girl with a skeleton body, it's pertaining to this theme and this series. I never intended it to be a series, but these were themes that just I sort of picked up on as being repetitious in my artwork. And then once I really sat down to think about why I was dwelling on those themes, I sort of unlocked this whole concept and idea. I'm not saying it's an original idea, it's definitely not, but I think the way that I've utilized it and the influences that I've had in my own life that have influenced to this series are unique to me in some way, and it's special to me in a lot of ways, having this series and sharing it with you guys. If you guys have any questions about this series, definitely feel free to comment down below and ask me about them. I would love to talk about that and you know, just sort of geek out with you guys a little bit. I do think that this piece is my favorite of the two. Again, I will link to the first one so you can check that out. But I don't know, I think just something about this one I like a little bit better. It could be because at this point I was a little bit more comfortable with the status of my materials, because as I briefly mentioned in the first one, the materials gave me a little bit of a hard time. So, you know, I overcame that a little bit more in the second piece than in the first piece. So I'm happy with the end result. I'm happy that they are both finished, and I love looking at them side by side. And also, they are both for sale on my online store. So if you would like to check them out or consider purchasing them, that is linked down below, as well as at the end of this video. I also have tons of other things available on my online store, and I really am trying to get rid of a lot of those prints and items before I have to move again. So definitely consider helping me out so I don't have to pack and move hundreds of prints. But there is seriously tons of stuff to check out on there, so I highly recommend it. And I think I've priced them all pretty reasonably. But enough self-promo. You can see I'm just sort of adding the finishing touches to this piece. Again, the watercolors totally did not work how I wanted them to, and I think that has a lot to do with the gesso that I used. And for the border, I know it looks kind of weird because I'm putting this reddish brown color down first and then I go over it with a blue, but that's really just to make the blue look darker because I didn't have a really rich indigo. So by putting the brown down first, it kind of mixes it to look a little bit darker, but it took a lot of layers, guys. If you watch my vlogs, you know, because I complained about having to paint these several times, and it's not because I didn't enjoy it, because I did. It's just that it wasn't how I was expecting it to go, and maybe that's okay, because I definitely learned a lot in the process. And yeah, I don't know. That's really all I have to say in this video. I think at this point I'm just trying to kill time. But we are almost at the end, so you will get to see a look at the finished piece. And that'll be it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Comment down below if you liked this video, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!